going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 16 of the Diego Colley Football Show. And we got a lot to get into. I'm really excited to talk today. Missed the episode on Monday/Tuesday. I know I said it was going to come out Tuesday. And I couldn't come in and talk. I was excited. The Mariners won. I was going to be excited to come in and record a video. But after that game, honestly, I just couldn't put thoughts together about the football on the weekend. So I decided to skip it. Just going to kind of go through the last weekend, preview this week's games, and as we do that, kind of talk about what each team did last week. Going to talk about the college football games last week, but and I'm sure everyone will understand that was probably the most crushing sporting loss of my lifetime. I think that might be worse than the Seahawks Super Bowl loss, just because I'm a little older now, understand it a little more. Don't know when they'll get back there, but yeah, it was crushing. It was crushing, and I was not in the state of mind to talk about football, quite honestly. But yeah, on to brighter things. I think it was good to take an episode off. Didn't want to put out a bad one where I was just spewing nonsense. So yeah, we're back, and we're gonna start with the Seahawks game. All right, so the Seahawks take down the Texans 27-19. They're on a bye this week, so that's why I'm talking about the full game, not previewing the game next week for them. But this was a huge win, and it wasn't a pretty one. Quite frankly, it was not pretty. It was pretty in some senses on the defensive side of the ball. I think it was a great win. It was a huge step in the right direction for what they want to do over there. But on the off, it was a game that came with a lot of frustration. This is a game that should have been over multiple times, and the Seahawks continued to just let the Texans hang around. And specifically on the offensive end, I'm going to start with more of the frustrations of the game. They just kept Houston in the game, kind of for no reason. The Seahawks defense was not giving these guys anything. They gave up, I believe it would be 12 points. The defense did as a whole. And Sam Darnold gets sacked in the end zone, fumble, gives them a touchdown. The Seahawks turned the ball over 4 times, I believe it was. Just unacceptable stuff that can't happen if you're playing a good quality football team. I'm not saying the Texans are a bad team, but it's a pretty poorly run offense. And the Seahawks defense exploited that exponentially. They had a dominating performance. But this wasn't the game that should have came down to a potential last drive. This wasn't the game that you should have needed to get a first down at the end of the game to even hold on. This is a game that you should have won by 20 points at a minimum. And the turnovers in this sense just absolutely cannot happen. You cannot get a field goal blocked. You cannot fumble 2 times and throw an interception at the end of the game when you're up 15 points and you're quite simply just trying to run the clock down. That's just stuff that you can't do. I thought that, overall, this was probably Darnold's worst game. He made some great throws. He made some fantastic throws, but in a broad sense, that interception at the end of the game was pretty bad. I thought this was Clint Kubiak's arguably worst game. Maybe not as bad as that Niners game, but just run the ball out. There was no reason at the end of that game. I get you're trying to I actually don't get why you're taking shots. The Cooper Kupp plays, whatever. Gadget plays work. Sometimes gadget plays don't. But also it's one of those things where you're inside Houston territory. You're about to be in the red zone. Is that the time for a gadget play? I think of gadget plays more as in a sense where you're struggling to get the ball moving and you need a little spark on offense. Not when you just enter the red zone after a 20-yard throw to JSN. I don't see that as the time to flip the ball to Cooper Kupp and let him throw a reverse pass that ends up in an interception. The guy was open, but just thought it was kind of pointless. And then towards the end of the game, you're up 15 points, 12 to 27, and you get the ball back. It's first and 17 after a penalty, and you just force something in there for an interception. And there's 8 minutes to go in the game. You're up 15. Darnold didn't need to force that. I don't know that you need to be that aggressive. I put that one a little bit more on Darnold. And then the following drive, again, you're up 15 points, and Darnold almost gets sacked into a safety. Charbonnet runs it. He throws an incomplete pass to JSN down the field, and instead of just getting rid of the ball, I thought he's held on to the ball a little bit too long today in this game. He runs backwards, and quite frankly, could have been called a safety. He calls him down at the 1. They punt, and that results in the Texans only offensive touchdown on the entire day was right at the end of that game in a sense where it didn't really affect it, but you give them a short field and they do finally score. Just frustrating things like that. I mean, if you're looking at grades, Donald grades out at a 61, so about average. I mean, we got to talk about JSN. JSN is, I mean, if he's top 3 receiver in the league, and I don't think that's debatable. Grades out at a 90, like he's playing elite. I mean, I thought Darnold's throws to JSN were quite that one down the sideline, that little fade ball, quick throw was fantastic. And on a positive note, on the offensive side, they ran the ball well. Like, I'm not outstanding, but they finally established a little bit of, okay, we can run the ball here a little bit. Kenneth Walker was getting those little 5 to 8 yard gains, and those are the productive runs that you need in a good offense. 17 for 66. It's not the flashiest, but it works. Charbonnet 12 for 49 is a productive stat line. 2 touchdowns too. He punches it in there for them. And yeah, I thought Elijah Arroyo had a good day. He ended up fumbling, but this was kind of his first real breakout game, 4 for 42. And no one else really catches the ball. Cooper Kupp 1 for 32. AJ Barner 1 for 7. This was the JSN show, 14 targets, 8 receptions. But it wasn't like it didn't need to be difficult for the Seahawks, and it didn't need to be difficult for the offense. There's a play late in the game too on that. I believe it was maybe the second to last drive. Is you're throwing a play action bomb to Torrey Horton, and I love the aggressiveness, but just didn't really need to happen. And I mean, whatever, however they want to do it, but just little gripes there. And they got a bye week to go in, and they'll go in to face the Washington Commanders. But they made this a lot harder on themselves than it needed to be. And on the defensive side, I mean, I can't say enough about how good this defense played. This was their true, like, dominating, like, suffocating game on defense. And I, quite frankly, have to say, I do not understand these defensive grades. They graded them out like they played a poor game. Boye Mafe had an 83. Kobe Bryant had a 75. Brandon Peely had a 75 with 7 snaps. Byron Murphy had a 70. And if we go down the list, Woolen, 69. Eamon Warrior, 67. Okada, 64. DeMarcus Lawrence, 64. Drake Thomas, 64. I thought he had an outstanding game. Leonard Williams, 61. He had 3 pressures. This is a team that had 31 pressures. 3 sacks only, but they were all over CJ Stroud all day. Uchenna Nwosu had 6 pressures. And he grades out at a 58. Like, on the defensive end, I don't really understand these rankings sometimes. But this was dominating. And they ended up not having Julian Love or Devin Witherspoon, and they still looked like this. Josh Jobe, I thought, played a great game. He needs to catch these interceptions. He's dropping too many. Tariq Woolen, I thought, had an outstanding game. I mean, he was locked down in coverage all day. Ty Okada, I thought, was good, especially in the run game. Drake Thomas, I thought, was very, very good at the linebacker spot. He is explosive. He's fast. He's honestly, like, he has exceeded any expectations that I had when I saw Drake Thomas going in the game early in the season. Like, I thought this was going to be bad. Tariq Woolen versus Texans receivers. Jalen Noel, 1 target, 0 receptions. Dalton Schultz, 2 targets, 2 receptions, 18 yards. Nico Collins, 2 targets, 1 reception, 3 receiving yards. Xavier Hutchinson, 2 targets, 0 receptions. Jaden Higgins, 1 target, 0 receptions. 2 tackles. He played great. He was only targeted 8 times, and they gave him 3 catches of 21 yards. Like, that's all you can ask for him. And you're playing a good receiver, Nico Collins, who he did go out kind of towards the second half with an injury, but only 4 receptions for 27 yards on 10 targets. Like, they were all over. And Dalton Schultz, their leading receiver, 9 receptions, 98 yards. Guarding the tight ends has always kind of been a Seahawks issue. But besides that, like, they had nothing. And in the run game, they were suffocated. CJ Stroud was their leading rusher with two carries for 25 yards. Nick Chubb was 5 for 16. Woody Marks was 10 for 15. He had nothing. It's just, especially in the short yardage on defense, I thought that they were dominating. It felt like if they got to a 3rd and 4th and 1, I felt more confident there than if it was like a 3rd and 5 and it was a passing situation. And that's not anything bad about the Seahawks passing defense, but they simply had, their offensive line had nothing for the Seahawks in short yardage, in running situations. And it was a dominant performance by the defense. And I think it was a big thing to show on primetime. It was 7 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, but it was a statement game for the Seahawks defense. And if this team plays a complete football game, it is going to look dominant. And they got another chance to do it on a national stage Sunday Night Football against Commanders. And at this point, we'll talk Jaden Daniels in a little bit, but we might not see Jaden. This might be the Seahawks defense versus Marcus Mariota, which, oh boy, with an extra week to prepare for that, extra week to get healthy, you got to think that Love and Spoon were going to play after the bye. Derek Hall, hopefully, too. Hopefully get Robbie Utes back. That would be awesome. But this was a great feeling to have going into the bye week for the Seahawks and Mike McDonald. So we'll move on. We will go to the other Monday night game just to touch on it, especially on the Lions side. The Lions are on a bye week, so we'll make sure to talk about them. This was a dominating win for the Lions, and this was a game where like people were coming into it and like saying the Bucs might be a pick here. Like this might be a Bucs underdog spot. The Bucs were plus 200, I think plus 250 maybe. They were underdogs, but it seemed like maybe a little bit of a trap game. And the Lions coming off a loss where they definitely didn't play their sharpest game of football at all against the Chiefs on Sunday night. And they came out and absolutely dominated these guys. They had Baker Mayfield had nothing for them. 0 rushes, wasn't able to use his legs at all. 28 of 50 for 228 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The sacks 4 times. Rachaad White, 10 carries for 38 yards. They had no semblance of a rush game. On the receiving side, the unfortunate news, Mike Evans goes out for presumably going to be the entire year, unfortunately, which really sucks. I mean, just came back from that hamstring injury, I believe it was, and breaks his collarbone. You never want to see that. But I mean, that's no there. Other than like besides that, the injury to him is one thing. This was an absolutely dominating win by Detroit. The Detroit defense was dominant, and this was something that they got to kind of expose by the Chiefs, giving them 30, give up 24 to the Bengals the week before. They were trying to get back on track against a really good offense, and they did. Emeka only had 4 receptions, 58 yards. Tez Johnson, 4 for 58. Cade Otton had a good game, 7 for 65. But, I mean, on their offensive side of the ball, this was Lions football. They were efficient. Jahmyr Gibbs was 17 for 136 with that long 75-yard run. 2 touchdowns for him. Amon-Ra was 6 for 86, 1 touchdown there. Jahmyr Gibbs was 82 yards receiving, 3 receptions, 3 targets. This was the Lions in a dominating win at home, stifling a good Buccaneers team that ended up being at more full strength than we thought they were going to be. Emeka ended up playing. Mike Evans ended up playing, and they couldn't really get a run game on at all. And it was just kind of stifling for that Baker, MVP candidacy. It's still week 7, so it's early on that kind of stuff. But it was definitely as convincing of a win as convincing wins can get for Detroit. So we'll move on to week 8 now. Let's start with the Minnesota Vikings at the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a very weird game to kind of decipher because I think it's going to be JJ McCarthy. And on the Vikings side in their game last week, this kind of showed the Carson Wentz that no one really wanted to see. It was the 2 early interceptions, the pick six from Wentz on back-to-back possessions. These interceptions were, and puts them in an early hole at 14-3. And they were honestly moving the ball decently. They got the ball into the red zone 4 times and only came out with 1 touchdown. I think it was 5 times in 1 touchdown because they ended up kicking 4 field goals. And you just can't do that if you want to win a game against a good Eagles team, quite frankly, that was coming off a rough 2-game stretch. And they bounced back, and I got to give props to Jalen Hurts here. This was Jalen Hurts, I'd say, probably the best passing game I've seen from in quite some time. He was lethal through the air. He was hitting Devontae Smith, had a huge day. He didn't miss him on the big ones, 9 for 183. A.J. Brown was 4 for 121, only 4 receptions, but 120 yards. And he didn't really have any help of the run game, quite frankly, at all. Saquon Barkley's fighting for 2-yard carries. He only has a long of 9, 18 for 44. Like, there was nothing there for him. So it relied on him and his arm. And there was a few big 3rd down, big 4th down plays where he made the play with his arm and he made the right decision. He escaped the pocket, made the right throw. And you got to be impressed with that. On the defensive side of the ball, it wasn't pretty on their sense at all, by any means, because Carson Wentz threw the ball for 313 yards in the air, 0 touchdowns, but those 2 interceptions, but they moved the ball. Jordan Mason, 15 for 57, 57 yards rushing, 1 touchdown on the rushing side. Wentz ran the ball for 30 yards. So if you're looking at a pure yards perspective, it's pretty even. But they did a great job of bending and not breaking, not folding in the red zone, and that's That is big for them. And this was a big win to get back on track. So if you lose this game, things can really start to derail for them. Zach Bond had a good day, graded at 83. Jordan Davis, good game, grades out to 74. 2 pressures for him, 1 pressure for Zach Bond, 22 pressures in total, only 2 sacks, but they made Wentz uncomfortable. And on the big downs that they needed to, they made the stops. I'm going to start doing something. I've been wanting to do this. I'm going to give a shout out to a guy in each game from the week before. So this will be more of a thing for the Monday show. But in this game, on each team, I definitely, I mean, sometimes it'll be a bit of an under the radar type guy. Sometimes it'll be an obvious thing. But I think Devontae Smith, he showed up when they needed to. It wasn't an AJ Brown day. I mean, he did have his 4 receptions, but he was their go-to guy in this situation. 9 receptions, 180 yards, 1 touchdown for him. And I think he was my kind of star of the day. On the Vikings side, I think it was Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison, since Carson Wentz has been playing, has been an absolute monster. 9 receptions, 128 yards, 12 targets. So like he has been they've just been giving him the targets, and when he gets the targets, he is producing. So I got to give a shout out to him for that. So on to this game on Thursday night, the Vikings go to LA. I can't tell if it's going to be McCarthy or not because they're saying this is a 6-week ankle sprain. I get high ankle sprains. You don't want to rush a guy back, but a 6-week injury? I just don't know. I don't know what they're kind of looking for here because I feel like he can play. He could play through this, and obviously they don't want to rush him back. He's a rookie. They don't want it to be an ugly awakening in a rough game where they don't want him to be hurt and rush him back and kind of makes it worse, will hurt his confidence. He's listed as questionable. If I had to guess, I think it's going to be Wentz again. And honestly, I think Wentz against these Chargers is. I kind of like this matchup for Minnesota weirdly because on the Chargers side of the ball, this is a team that can't really run the ball again. So you're going to rely on. You're going to put it all on Justin Herbert, but that's a banged up offensive line. And this is a Vikings defense that Brian Flores didn't have his greatest day last week against Philadelphia. And I trust him to bounce back. And if they can get pressure on Herbert and with no real run game behind him, just force him to escape early, force him to kind of push those throws into those spots that he doesn't necessarily want to make and make throws that he doesn't want to have to make in moments, I think they can have some success against them. And I think when Wentz is chucking it to his guys, this is the Chargers defense that got exploited against Indianapolis. They got dominated. And we'll talk about the Colts later when we talk about their game. But the Chargers last week was not an encouraging sight to see from them. This was a game that they were favored in the game, even spread, but they're favored in. They get the ball ran down their throat. Jonathan Taylor, 16 carries, 94 yards. Justin Herbert is their leading rusher in the trenches, which is where a Harbaugh team is wanting to specialize, beat you in the trenches. They got worked. They got absolutely worked. And they didn't make Justin Herbert throw. And he throws for 420 yards, but they were constantly playing from behind in this game. And the Colts had a lot of success kind of all over the place. And if the Vikings can use Jordan Mason and kind of run the football and move the ball on the ground, then that will lead to them being able to throw it in the air. And he's going to give these guys a chance. He's going to give Jordan Addison the ball a lot and Jefferson the ball a lot. So I got to say, I'm taking the Vikings in this game. I think this is a game where Wentz can succeed. He can chuck it and kind of work his matchups there. He likes his 2 guys on the outside. And yeah, I like the Vikings in this game, quite frankly. Up next, the Miami Dolphins at the Atlanta Falcons. Where do I start here? I'm going to start with the Atlanta Falcons. And we got to talk about last week. This was a chance for these guys to make a statement. How you can't have 2 as polar opposite of national television games than these guys just had. You beat the Bills at home, convincing statement win where you smother Josh Allen. The offense looked explosive. And your offense comes out here and looks lifeless against the San Francisco 49ers. Lifeless. And this was an offensive problem. This game is not falling on the San Francisco on the defense at all. What the Niners did was very impressive, quite honestly, and I'll talk about them later. But this wasn't Atlanta Falcons' defensive problem. They held them to 20 points. Okay, could have been a little more probably, but you fumbled. Penix got sacked. He got strip sacked in a 2-minute situation. Gave them 3 points before half. Turned it over on downs late in the game on a 4th and 1. Drake May, I think it was a bad play call. I don't know. Just missed opportunities, and then you turn it over down at the end of the game when it's over. I just don't know how you can look so. They're such a streaky team because they lose by 30 to the Panthers, come back with an explosive offensive performance against the Commanders, put up 34, and then you beat the Bills at home, and then you come out the next week in a big spot against San Francisco, depleted San Francisco, their first game without Fred Warner, and you can't run the football. The explosive pass plays aren't there. Drake London isn't a part of the game plan. 4 receptions, 42 yards. I mean, 10 targets, nothing there. Pitts had a big game, 7 receptions, 62 yards, 10 targets there. Mooney's your leading receiver with 3 receptions, 68 yards. Just disappointing. And this is a team I just don't know how to read. I do not know how to read because that defense is really good. That defense is very talented. The pass rush is really good. But it's just the offense, man. It's like what you don't know. You genuinely have no idea which offense you're going to get. And the defense struggled to rush the passer a little bit. Like, tell me 10 pressures, 1 sack. But that wasn't the problem in this game. It wasn't the problem at all. So going on in this game against Miami, on the Miami side, I got to say, I was expecting to be talking about a Mike McDaniel firing, quite honestly, after Sunday's game. Because that was, if there's ever a game you're going to fire your coach after, I thought it would be that one. Again, 2 1-5 teams matching up, going to Cleveland, and to get absolutely embarrassed, 31-6 by the Cleveland Browns is shameful. Tua Tagovailoa, 12 of 23, 100 yards, 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. D. Eskridge is your leading receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Shout out Seahawks legend D. Eskridge. But just embarrassing. Just flat out embarrassing. And I don't even know how else you can phrase it. I don't know why you aren't firing your coach after this game. Like, I just don't understand. And McDaniel's just so hard to take serious as an NFL head coach right now. Shows up on the sidelines of a rainy, cold game and his pulled up pants, his sunglasses on. It's just puzzling, to be honest. And I have no idea why he is not fired. I mean, give me the Falcons to win this game. I would hope that they can win this convincingly. There's no reason at all this should be a close game with what this defense should do to win this Miami offense and what the Falcons offense should be able to do. They should be able to run the football. Jerkins 25 for 84, 3 touchdowns. Give me them to embarrass these guys. That's Jets and the Bengals. I got to say, this game feels like so long ago because it was almost a week ago. It is going to be a week ago, actually. The Cincinnati Bengals beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the Unk Bowl. Joe Flacco. I said there was a sneaky spot for the Bengals. If there was ever a time to get their season back on track, this would be it. And wow, it was. 31 of 47, 342 yards, 3 touchdowns. This was a fun game to keep track of to watch. Just 2 old veteran quarterbacks going back and forth. And I got to say, I was wrong about Flacco. I mean, I thought that he would die behind that offensive line, and who knows? It's still early, but I mean, he did what they brought him in to do. They brought him in to throw the ball to their stud receivers, and that's exactly what he did. That is exactly what he did. He fed Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had 23 targets, 16 receptions, 161 yards, 1 touchdown. T. Higgins, 6 for 96 and 1 touchdown. 10 targets for him. This is what you brought Flacco to do. He's a gunslinger. He really is. And I mean, on the offense, he was pressured 21 times, sacked 3, but you can deal with that if you're slinging the rock like that. And it unlocked a bit of a run game for these guys. 11 carries for 108 yards from Chase Brown. That's a step in the right direction for this Bengals offense. And they go in to take on the New York Jets, who another team. That was a pretty embarrassing loss as well. The Jets are an embarrassment of a franchise right now because you lose 13-6 to the Carolina Panthers. You bench your quarterback, Justin Fields, in the middle of the game. Tyrod comes in. Tyrod can complete passes. He can execute the offense, but they can't really push the ball down the field. No Garrett Wilson. You got the owner of the team saying if put give any coach a quarterback situation like that and see what happens. Just publicly shaming Justin Fields, who isn't great, but he's still on the roster. They haven't named the quarterback yet out of like game plan purposes, but does it really matter? I mean, if they were going to win a game, it was going to be last week against Carolina, this week against the Cincinnati, or next week against the Browns. But the thing is, I just don't see them being able to score more than like 15 points right now. It is like in a close game situation. In garbage time is one thing, but in like a close football game, a back and forth game, I don't see them being able to score points. I got to give a shout out to J.C. Horn on the Panthers side of the game of the ball. He had an outstanding game, 2 interceptions. He was a difference maker for them, but keeping it on the Jets. I mean, it's just like Justin Fields, 6 for 12, 46 yards. Tyrod, 10 for 22, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Both sacked 3 times. Just ugly. Breece Hall is 11 for 38. He wants to get traded, get him out of there. I'm taking the Bengals in this game because I think Flacco is truly he's brought a little juice to that team, and that could be a fun team to watch down the stretch. In a division that with the Ravens at 1-5, it's wide open. If you can hold on for long enough and get your quarterback back, they can make some. I don't know how much noise, but they can make some noise in the playoffs. I'm on the Cleveland Browns at the New England Patriots. The Cleveland Browns get a win. We'll talk about that. We just talked about Miami Dolphins. It was an impressive win. I gotta say, it was dominant. I expect that to be a back and forth game. I kind of expected. I said the Dolphins were gonna win. I thought the firepower maybe would have. I mean, just the receiver, like the A-chain at running back would have been a difference. But the Browns defense, which is a very good unit, stifled them. So you got to give them props to that. Quinshon Judkins ran the ball very well. Harold Fannin has continued to emerge a little bit. And this wasn't the game where they needed to throw the ball. Dylan Gabriel was 13 of 18, 116 yards. Fannin led the team with 4 receptions for 36. Jamari Thrash, 1 reception, 23 yards. Judy was 17 yards. But bad weather game, gritty game. Hard to really look too much into that one for future because completely different game plan that is going to be this week against New England. But it's a good win. It's a good team win, gritty win. Good for them. On the Patriots side, the Patriots are still sitting at the top of the division, and they're coming off a win themselves against the Tennessee Titans. A game that started off slow. It was a game where I thought that, wow, 10-3. This might be a bit of a tough spot where Titans playing with some interim coach juice and the Vrabel return game, a lot of stuff going on there. They get down to a quick deficit. Titans have a big play, and Drake May comes back with the most efficient game in New England Patriot quarterback history. 21 of 23, 222 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is outstanding. That is an MVP caliber game, putting him into that conversation. Ramondre Stevenson ran the ball well. 18 carries on 88 yards, 1 touchdown. Diggs had a good day, 7 for 70. Booty, 2 for 55. And it was a win that told you a lot about the Patriots because they could have been in we're getting a back and forth battle. Like, we're not going to get stops. Offense is going to sputter a little bit on the road. But no, they rebounded. They rebounded very well, I thought. And I was very impressed with how the Patriots fought last week after battling back. And you got the Browns this week at home. You can get yourself to 6-2 in a really, really good spot in your division. And I expect them to do that. I think the Patriots are going to handle business this weekend against Cleveland. But don't be surprised if that defense gives them some fits a little bit. And if the Browns can move the ball and kind of put some scores on the board and kind of make the Patriots claw from behind against that defense, it could get interesting. But I still like the Patriots to win the game. Up next, we got a big rematch. The New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles looking to get revenge for that loss they suffered 2 weeks ago. Just 2 weeks ago. These division matchups are always weird when they get the 2 times in 3 weeks type of deal. But the Eagles, I need to see them run the football a little bit. And I understand that's going to be a tough task against this Giants team. But you cannot put your success as a team in every game on Jalen Hurts' arm. It just can't happen. It's not a sustainable way of playing. It is not their recipe for success. And they've had some real big struggles at running the football. So I would not be surprised if they get into trouble running the ball again and they find themselves in trouble in this game because you can't rely on Hurts to go 19-23 for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns every week at all. You can't rely on these 2 receivers to combine for 300 yards on their own and have the only other guy over 10 yards, Dallas Goedert, for 3 for 18. It looks great on a statue, but it's not a sustainable type of way to play. And on the Giants side, wow. I mean, I was bought into the Giants for about maybe how many quarters is that gonna be? They won that game, so 6 quarters, probably 7 quarters actually, because they were shutting out the Broncos. It was 19-0, I believe, after 3 quarters. And what an absolute collapse to give up 33 fourth quarter points on what is a pretty solid Giants defense, a solid defensive line. I thought the play calling was bad from Dable. I feel like he just didn't think he could creep up on him that bad, to be honest, because they go up 19-0, and there were some fluky plays in there that they get a fluky stop on the 1-yard line. Both teams kind of had that like weird deflected pass that ends up in a touchdown. So kind of a weird thing there, but you're up 19-8 after the Broncos score, and you go down with a great 6-play touchdown drive. That was the tipped one to Theo Johnson that you would think puts the game away. It was 26-8, and the Broncos score a touchdown, make it 26-10. And this was a play that kind of lost from the dart interception in your own territory on a play. It was a great play by the linebacker, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd say he forced it. I think he really just got tricked. The guy shows blitz on the line, falls back, Dart's trying to step up and make a play, and you eat a sack there, you'd probably win the game because there's 5 minutes left in the football game. 5 minutes left in the game, and even if you eat a sack, there's at that point the Broncos are gonna have to go down the whole field, and instead you give them a 4-play, 1 minute long, 20-yard touchdown drive, where that's like nothing for them. And you have a 3-and-out the next drive where scatterboo run, incompletion. Even if you run the ball on that incompletion, instead that the clock ticks all the way down. But it doesn't, so it's 2:51 and long touchdown drive for the Broncos in 1 minute, 6 plays, 68 yards, and then Jackson Dart drives the team down the field. It was aided by some penalties. It wasn't the prettiest at all, but he gets them down, and they get that controversial PI. I don't know if it was a PI. And you're like, oh my gosh, Jackson Dart, legacy moment to go up 3, and you missed the extra point, the second extra point of the day, losing football. And then you just give Bo Nix the easiest game-winning touchdown drive of all time. Like, so easy for him. 29-yard pass, 22-yard pass to Sutton, you're in field goal range, spike the ball. Like, you got, like, props to the Broncos. Props to the Broncos, who we'll talk about later. We'll get a little more in depth for that. But I was really bought into the Giants, and then they do just the most classic Giant thing of all time. But this game, I think it could be a fun one. Divisional matchups, you never want to count any team out in these. And it's not like the Eagles have looked dominant at all. Even with that win, they're not the old deal. They're not a team that you're really scared of going into. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep it close, but I would be heavily shocked if the Eagles lose to the Giants. That would be very shocking to me. So give me the Eagles in this one. Next up, Bills at Panthers. Bills are coming off a bye week off that embarrassing loss to Atlanta. And the Panthers, little winning streak, their first win on the road to 4-3. So 4-3 football team against the 4-2 football team. 3 wins in a row, beat the Dolphins, beat the Cowboys, beat the Jets. Not the craziest wins. The Cowboys win is pretty impressive, but a big test against Buffalo. You're undefeated at home this week. And I don't know, man. It's a tough spot. It's 7.5-point dogs at home. It could be. This has the makings of one of those games it's a fun back and forth game. But if Bryce Young's not playing, actually, my bad, I'm remembering. Bryce Young is not going to play with an ankle injury, so that probably contributes to the line. I was like, these guys are getting a little bit. They're getting a little bit underappreciated here. But if it's Dalton, that completely changes how I feel, because Bryce Young, he hasn't been his greatest self, but he's given them chances to win these games. Could I see a red rifle legacy game here? Chucking the ball to Ted McMillan. Give Rico Dowdle the shares the backfield too. I got to mention that, because they try to go kind of split it with Chuba, but Rico goes 17 for 80 and Chuba goes 14 for 31. You can't take this guy off the field right now. Like, there is no reason to take Rico Dowdle off the field. Throw him the ball, hand him the ball. This is his backfield until he loses it or shows signs of regression that shows we need to split these a little more. There's no reason. You're making your football team worse if you're trying to get Chuba over the ball right now. Liga has continued to be a bright spot, 9 for 92, 1 touchdown. You got to give him props there. Like, he's had a slow start to the season. He's kind of emerging a little bit, so good for him there. I think it could be fun with Andy Dalton in there, but I think this is a big Bills bounce back spot. Taking out that negative energy that they had from that Atlanta game. Up next, Bears at Ravens. I am excited for this game, I have to say. Lamar is back, so it's a different Ravens team. But the Chicago Bears coming off of 4 wins in a row. The first time since 2018, I believe, that they had 4 wins in a row. And a Ravens team that this is a must win. This is an absolute must win. If you lose this, you're at 1-6 in a spot where you kind of do have to win out. And this is no gimme of a game at all. This is a game they're 6.5-point favorites at home. I wouldn't like that if I was a Ravens fan. This is a Bears team that's healthy. It wasn't the prettiest win last week against New Orleans, but it was a win. They didn't necessarily have it with Caleb. A few weird procedural issues with the snap. That was weird to watch in that game, but they got a win. A win's a win in the NFL. And it should have been controlling, and it got a little too close for comfort right at a halftime. The Saints made it a 6-point game, and it was like, are the Bears going to Bears this game and lose this? And no, they rebounded, got to end up with 2 field goals. The defense got stops. They made Rattler have kind of his worst game I've seen all year. He's turning the ball over, putting the ball in harm's way. But it was a good win, and I can see them having some real success on the ground against this Ravens run defense. This is a really bad Ravens run defense. And Kyle Hamilton's questionable. Marlon Humphrey's questionable. Roquan's not going to play. There's no reason in my mind that they shouldn't be able to run the ball in this team. And if Caleb can have success, if Hamilton doesn't play, and we see Caleb pushing the ball deep to Rome down the field and DJ Moore, I think that this can get scary for the Ravens. And I don't know why the Bears are being underestimated in this game, to be quite honest, because I think this is a Bears team that can really go in there, and they're hot. When a team's hot, they're riding that momentum. And it doesn't matter how pretty the wins are, how the wins come. They're a team that's won 4 games in a row, and they feel like they can beat anyone right now. I think Ben Johnson has that confidence instilled in his team. And I think this is the game they come out firing. And I'm going to take the Bears outright in this game. Even from with Lamar, there was nothing that I saw from the Ravens that showed me this was a powerhouse team. I mean, they're putting up more points, but this is Bears defense that's forcing a lot of turnovers. They are a turnover machine. I believe they had 4 in last week's game. Let me check that out here. Yeah, they forced Rattler 3 interceptions, 1 fumble, 4 turnovers on his back. In the Commanders game, Jaden goes 1 interception. They lose 2 fumbles. Bill fumbles once. Jaden fumbles once. It doesn't matter if they're forcing these turnovers, and they might be avoidable things that they can do, but they're forcing them. Gino threw 3 picks in that Raiders game, 1 fumble from Genty. That's 4 again. That's what you need to do. Like, they are a turnover-driven defense. They're not necessarily going to stifle you on every down, but they just find the way to get the ball back in their offensive hands, and that's a big tool. And Lamar, I don't know how rusty he's going to be, but I could see it a little bit. I mean, he's missed 3 weeks of time. This will be the 4th week because he got injured during that Chiefs game, missed the Texans, missed the Rams, and the bye week. And this is scary as the Ravens. I could see them playing a little timid, a little scared, because they know they need to win this game. The pressure is on the Baltimore Ravens. They have no room to mess around, similar to how the Bengals were last year. I keep making that comparison because I just keep seeing that in these teams. So give me the Bears in this game. I think the Ravens are going to press, and I think the Bears are going to take advantage of it and run the football off that success from DeAndre Swift and win this football game. Last game of the early window, the San Francisco 49ers at the Houston Texans. And the vibes couldn't be more off between these 2 teams because the Niners are a team that's banged up. They don't know who's playing, but they keep gritting out wins. And I think Robert Saleh is doing a fantastic job with that defense. That defense is outstanding. Like, the guys that he has in there playing well is so impressive. Like, you can't say enough about the job that Robert Saleh has done coaching. Bryce Huff had a studly game last week, 5 total pressures, 2 sacks. He was getting after Penix. Chase Lucas, the cornerback that they brought in, the young guy, he was a 7th round pick in 2022, and he's coming out and playing great snaps for them. 35 snaps, but grades out an 81 on PFF. Like, they're just throwing guys in there, and Saleh is scheming it up so well. He's making it so tough on these guys. But this is a tough test for this Kyle Shanahan offense because this is a great Texans defense. It is. The Seahawks had success against them last week, but this is a great Texans defense. They're going to force turnovers. That D-line is going to get after Mac Jones. He's going to get beat up just like that game against the Rams. If it is him, I assume it'll be Mac Jones. I don't think they're rushing back Purdy at all. But I expect this to be a real low-scoring game. And unfortunately, like, as much as it pains me to say it, if it's a close back-and-forth game, low-scoring, need 1 drive to win it, I'm trusting Mac Jones and the San Francisco 49ers more than I'm trusting CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. Just plain and simple, because I haven't seen anything from Stroud in that offense and any in that play calling and short yardage situations that tells me that they're ready for that moment right now at all. That they need to win breakout games where the defense gets them out in front and they score and they're ahead by a few scores at the end. I don't trust them in clutch situations, especially against a Niners team that has proven this season to be very clutch. They go down and beat the Seahawks, and recoil and mess it up. They beat them. The defense makes clutch stops against the Saints when the Saints have multiple chances to win the game. In that Cardinals game, they drive down and hit the game-winning field goal as time expires. In the Rams game, they make the key stop on that fourth and one in overtime and win the game. In last week's game against the Falcons, the defense makes key stops and the offense has a drive to score a touchdown to put the game away, and that's exactly what they do. They have showed up to the test every single time, so I'm going to take them in a scenario against a Texans team that has not showed that at all. So give me the Niners, unfortunately, in that game. A road underdog. Bucks at Saints. The Bucks coming off of definitely by far their worst game of the season, for sure. They kind of got exposed, I would say. They lose Mike Evans, just really hurts. And the Saints, I mean, I say it every week. The Saints are going to give you a test. How long they give you that test for is the question, but they're gonna push you for a little bit. And in that Bears game, they had that moment in the middle of the game where they scored before the half. They got the ball out of the half and scored, and they made it a 6-point game. Rattler played his worst game of the year, turned the ball over a few times. So you don't want that to happen if you're a Saints fan. But it's a divisional game. The Saints, remember a few games last year where they played the Bucks tough? That last game they play them tough. They're always kind of hanging around. And the Bucks need to run the football because they're in last week's game when that was taken away, and it's not like they've been a run reliant team, but they've been able to run it at most times for some success. And when Rashad White was 10 carries for 38 yards, and there's not a real attempt, and you're making Baker drop back 50 times, you're going to be struggling because that's just not. That's a lot of pressure on the quarterback against a good Lions defense. And obviously the Saints is the worst team, but the Bucs need to get back to what they want to do. And I mean, I trust Baker to be Baker in a lot of situations, but at somewhat, it can't be all him all the time. He can't do that 18 weeks of the season, drop back 50 times and bail them out with his arm and make those hero plays from the pocket where he's breaking 3 sacks and running for a huge first down. You can't expect that. When it happens, it's fantastic, but you cannot expect that when you're Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this is a big Bucs bounce back spot. I think this is a good spot for them to get a win over a divisional opponent. They play a good team in the Lions, and they're not going to want to falter here, mess around. I think Emeka goes back to having a big day. He's probably a little more healthy. I think he probably rushed back a little bit to get back to that game because he figured they were going to need him. And it ended up, I feel like they didn't have the ball a lot in that game. It was the Lions always had the football, which is it's a brutal type of thing. The turnovers killed them. The interception killed them. The lost fumble from Sterling Shepard killed them. They just had the mistakes that kind of brought them out of any chance to have a Baker clutch comeback at the end of the game. They took the opportunity away from themselves, and they know that. So I think the Bucs are going to bounce back big here. And on the Saints side, I kind of hope that Rattler gets back. He doesn't fall back into bad form. He been having a really solid season, keeping the ball out of harm's way, and that's the reason he's still the starter. And turns the ball over 4 times on his own against the Bears. He was forcing throws in there, just doing unnecessary things he didn't have to do. He just needs to stay out of his own way, keep playing the ball how he was all before last week, and I think they'll be fine. I think they'll continue to claw around in games. They're not a great football team, but I think they'll continue to claw. But give me the Bucs to bounce back in this one. All right, Dallas Cowboys at Denver Broncos. These are two teams that I don't know what to do with, honestly, because the Cowboys have up there with like the best offense in the entire league, and I don't think that's debatable, especially with CD being back. Like that offense is so explosive and can put up so many points, and I think this will be a good litmus test for them because they're facing a good defense. Can they score points against a quality defense at a good enough clip to hold against that their defense can hold on? A good test for their defense too, because this Denver offense, I don't know what to do with either. Like I do not know what to do with Bo Nix. They're coming off 3 wins in a row. They're sitting at 5-2, but again, they probably should have lost against the Giants. A miracle comeback. Like you got to give him props for that, but 27 he's got to get more efficient. 27-50 is not how they want to play football. at all. And they established the run game a little more actually, which I do love. That's helping them out a lot. But Dobbins 14 for 81 is good, but we cannot be barely completing over 50% of our passes. That is just a recipe for disaster. And I'm interested to see if this Cowboys defense can maybe flush them a little bit, force a turnover or two. That is the key to the game for them, because I don't think you can expect to score every possession against this Denver defense. This is a really, really good defense. And this team that they showed they can fight. And I got to give them props to that, because the fight that they showed in that game against the Giants was very, very impressive. It was one of the more surprised I've been in the game all year, because I thought that was over multiple times, and they stood up every time, and they came back and won that game in a huge comeback. And Dallas, what a win for the Cowboys! I think I thought Dallas was going to win that game, but it wasn't even close. That offense with CeeDee Lamb, I'll say it again, I'd put it above almost any offense around the entire football league, because with Pickens already, he was explosive. Pickens and Ferguson, the way they're playing, with the way Dak's playing at arguably an MVP level. And Javonte Williams, who's been kind of the breakout star, 19 carries, 116 yards, 1 touchdown. CD goes 5 for 110. George Pickens 4 for 82. Ferguson 7 for 29. And this was a game they didn't even have to use him the whole game. It was 44-22. This game was over when the second half started. And Jaden Daniels was out with an injury. You never want to see that. But this is the Dallas Cowboys offense. It's the offensive show every week, and the defense came in with a turnover or two. One of those was Jaden fumbles when he gets hurt, but forced an interception to Mariota. I believe it was Deron Bland got that interception. But it's just, I got to give him major props. And I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys to win this game against Denver Broncos. I am taking the Cowboys to go into Denver, go into Mile High, and win this game, because I feel like if they can score enough, I trust them to get into not a shootout, but to be able to go back and forth. I trust Dallas to go down and ring the bell and score in a big possession they need it. And I don't necessarily know that I see that with Bo Nix yet. On the next game, Titans at Colts. Are the Colts the best team in the NFL? Because if you told me that, I would be able to disagree with you. The way they're playing games and the way they're winning games is so dominant. And they don't really have a weakness. They are playing such great, well-rounded football. Jonathan Taylor is looking like the best running back in the league. 16 for 94, 3 touchdowns. Daniel Jones doesn't turn the ball over. 23 to 34, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns. Only sacked once. Alec Pierce goes for 100 yards receiving on 5 receptions. Tyler Warren, 4 for 70. Seems like every week that's this dude's stat line. Shane Steichen does such a great job of getting him involved in the game plan. They get him in the backfield. They get him moving around. They get their rookie weapon tight end involved every single week. And it's always early in the game. You got to get him established to make them think about that. The Chargers had 18 pressures on Daniel Jones, only 1 sack. The Colts O-line had a great day. I mean, they're mauling them in the run game. Quentin Nelson grades out at a 90 run block grade. If you told me in Indianapolis Colts every week, I'm just more and more flabbergasted at what I'm seeing from these guys, because it is so wildly impressive, and I can't say enough. And the Tennessee Titans, I thought they had a little bit of a spark with Mike McCoy back there. Get off to an early hot start. Cam Ward has a big long touchdown pass, and I was like, all right, do we have something? And from that point on, I believe the Patriots were like the 31-3 run. So kind of back down to earth. But you just want to see those little sparks from Cam Ward. You're not expecting to win a lot of games. You fired your coach. You just want to see those little things that show you, like, yes, this guy's a franchise quarterback. And I hope that he can continue to bring those. Sunday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Green Bay Packers, they come out with a win last week. Should have lost the game. They should have lost the game. By far. They were the worst team in the majority. They put up 14 points in the fourth quarter. Jordan Love, 19 to 29, 180 yards, 1 touchdown. Can't run the ball again. Jacobs was 13 for 55, 2 touchdowns, though. Like, what is this team? What is this team? What I will say is a positive note. I said I wanted to see a dominating performance from the Packers defense and Micah Parsons, and that's exactly what we got. 8 pressures, 3 sacks. I mean, you couldn't ask for much more. He vaults himself, and he's in the betting favorite for the Defensive Player of the Year, which I think is rightfully so. And I didn't think the defense played a horrible game. I mean, they gave 23 to the Cardinals, but There was a lot of long drives. It felt like his sacks were coming towards the end of the Jacoby Brissett had them in. They had a chance to win this game, and Jacoby Brissett has done that multiple times. 2 turnover on downs at the end of the game, 1 on 4th and 1 where he gets stuffed, and then at the end of the game when it's at the 27, a few chucks to the ends and they don't get it. But they should have. I think they should have lost this game. You get stuffed on 4th and 1 on a sneak. When you're up 3, you had a chance to kind of put the game away. But I mean, you got to applaud their resilience, I'd say, because they were kind of all down the entirety of this football game. They were constantly trailing, and they kept getting back, made the stops they needed to be. Jordan Love's made the throws he needed to make, but he's not wowing me, and like not at all. I believe Christian Watson's coming back this week, so hopefully that changes something. But Golden goes 4 for 37, Dobbs goes 6 for 72. Kraft is his reliable guy again, 5 for 58 with 1 touchdown. But I just don't know. I just don't know what this Packers team is, to be honest, and I don't know at all. And then going to face the Steelers, who just lost a game to the Cincinnati Bengals and are another unconvincing team. This is 2 teams with really good records, but I'm unconvinced by both of them. The Steelers are sitting at 4-2 and wins against the Browns, Vikings, and Patriots before the Patriots caught their stride. Wins over the Jets, losses to the Seahawks and the Bengals. I don't think they're a 4-2 football team. And if I was a Steelers fan, I'd be scared about that division with Cincinnati behind me. And this is a game that if you lose, you're at 4-3. The Bengals have that win. You play them again in a few weeks. Could start a little skid because you have the Colts next week. Aaron Rodgers revenge game against the Packers. He's going to get up for that. He's going to be stoked about that. And the offense doesn't really concern me. They had success with Jaylen Warren last week, but that was fine. DK had success. Rodgers had success. He turned the ball over twice. One of them was that kind of fluky interception down on the left. But this is not a Mike Tomlin defense. This defense is not good. It's not a typical Steelers defense. It's hard to play against. They got carved up by Joe Flacco. And I know this isn't necessarily a studly passing offense in Green Bay, but if he can do that, I expect Matt LaFleur to be able to scheme something up for these guys. Chase Brown had success on the ground. I think that Josh Jacobs is going to be able to have success on the ground. Just transitive property. And I think that if Micah Parsons continues to play like that, he's going to get after Rodgers and little no mobility there. The Seahawks got after him a lot. I think this Packers D-line is going to get after him a lot. So I think the Packers are going to win this football game. They're favorites on the road, -170, Sunday Night Football. Rodgers is going to be hyped up. They're going to have to be explosive. They're going to need explosive plays because I don't think you're going to win a low, gridded out shootout against this team. They're going to have to score points and make the Packers kind of play from behind and maybe force a few Love turnovers. I think that's the recipe for success. But I think if that pass rush is playing out it did last week, the Packers win this game. Up next, Commanders at the Chiefs Monday Night Football. A little bit disappointing. No Jaden Daniels. Chiefs are 12-point favorites. The Kansas City Chiefs absolutely dominated the Raiders. The Raiders had 31 offensive plays. That is unheard of. That is absolutely unheard of. And on the Commanders side, the Jaden thing really sucks. I do have to say it's tough to see. You don't want to see a young guy like that get hurt, and you don't want it's a hamstring injury. You don't want him to rush it back. At least it's not anything serious. I was thinking worst case scenario when I saw that play happen. But I mean, with that injury, I think that just takes this game completely out of hand for the Commanders. Commanders defense looks old. Lattimore's getting absolutely just like people are having their way with Marshawn Lattimore on the outside. The Chiefs offense, like, wow, that is what I've been talking about. With Rashee Rice in there, this is the scariest team in football. Like, there's so many guys you have to cover. Worley didn't have a good day. Kelsey had a decent day. They didn't have to. They were up 31 points in the blink of an eye. They were literally marching down the field with such ease against that Raiders defense that they didn't even have to bring out all their stops. They were trying to get Rashee Rice in early. Like, they're giving him the ball. They knew they're giving him that first touchdown, those jet sweeps. But I think this is going to be a dominant Chiefs win. I would be very shocked if the Commanders keep it close, especially with Mariota back there. Bill's struggling. The Commanders' offense is struggling. No McLaurin is hurting them. They had no Debo. You got to hope at least one or two of those guys can be back this week. But it's pretty rough over there. You got Bobby Wagner still thugging it out in middle backer, but this Commanders defense is not good. The roster is not that talented, and it just shows you all the holes that Jaden Daniels covered up with that historic season he had last year. All right, going to finish the episode off recapping the weekend in college football. A lot of storylines, a lot of interesting things that really caught my eye all weekend in the college game. And a bit of a slower week this week, but a few big games that have playoff implications. Got to start with Miami. Miami really let the country down, let Miami down, let the fan base down in what was an embarrassing loss, I thought. That was a kind of, I don't know if I'd say back to reality, but just a complete struggle bus of a loss that really humiliating, I'd say. They lose to Louisville. Louisville's a solid team now, 5-1, 2-1 in the ACC. Miami's at 5-1, 1-1 in the ACC. But this was kind of the Carson Beck that we started to see swords last season and end the season in Georgia. Carson Beck was inching his way towards the top of those Heisman Trophy rankings, and he comes out with a 25-35, 270 yards performance with 4 interceptions. They weren't able to run the football. Mark Fletcher was 8 carries for 18 yards, 1 touchdown. Jordan Lyle, 5 carries, 15 yards. Malachi Honey, 2 for 14. In totality, they had 24 carries for 63 yards. They just got beat, man. Like, they just got beat. Like, there's no excuse about it. It wasn't fluky. Beck played bad. They just overall played a really poor game. And, I mean, I don't – it's weird because it wasn't the type of Miami team that we've seen at all this year. Miami's been a team that has been overall pretty dominant. They beat good teams. They beat Notre Dame at home in a close one. They beat Florida by multiple scores. They beat Florida State by a score. Dominated South Florida. And you had a Friday night game, and you're looking at the rest of their schedule. It's smooth sailing. Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Pitt. And they just a letdown game. And they're going to be fine. They're probably going to make the playoff. But just a little bit of a disappointing loss there. It's like, what is this team then? Because this was not the Miami that we had seen at all. They didn't dominate the trenches. They got pushed around by Louisville, quite frankly. Louisville, Isaac Brown, 15 carries, 113 yards. If you flipped these stat lines, I would have believed you. In the opposite, Chris Bell had a hell of a day. 9 receptions, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. Miller Moss wasn't the most efficient, 23-37, but 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over. That's all you can ask for. So a disappointing loss for Miami. A real good big win for Louisville, up to 19th in the rankings. And if we're looking at that conference standings right now, both of them are at one conference loss. And that conference is kind of up for grabs, in all honesty. You got Georgia Tech now is the number 1 team in the conference at number 7. Virginia is at the number 2 team in the conference at 3-0 in the conference at 3-0, number 16 team in the country. SMU is undefeated in conference play at 3-0 as well. Pitt is 3-1, Duke's 3-1, Louisville 2-1, Cal 2-1. Miami's sitting at 1-1 in conference games. This conference is really up for grabs. Virginia is a team that's kind of sliding under the radar. They squeaked by Wazoo this weekend in a game that they should have lost. Wazoo blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. And their schedule the rest of the way is not very hard. They have Duke. That's kind of the toughest game left on their schedule at that point. Looking at Georgia Tech's schedule is pretty light, too, in conference play. Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt. They finished the season with Georgia, but they should win out in conference. So, I mean, I don't know how the tiebreakers work in all these scenarios, but is Miami looking at a possibility they might not make the playoff? I mean, their own conference championship. They do have SMU coming up, and that's going to be a big one to get them out of their way. They have Pitt as well. But no room for error. No room for error in a very up and open ACC. I'll talk about BYU. BYU had a big win over Utah this weekend. That was a big win for the Big 12 conference standings. And BYU is a team I was not impressed with in some of their wins. And they came out and pushed around Utah. They got off to a hot start. They hung around. They didn't turn the ball over. They forced a Dampier interception. They limited Dampier on the ground, 15 carries for 64 yards. They didn't let him kill him. Wasn't efficient through the air. He was 20 for 36, 244, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Bear Bachmeier, again, it's not the prettiest stat line with him week in and week out, number 47 at the quarterback position, but they ran the ball well, 26 for 122. Bachmeier was 11 for 64 on the ground. and they just made the plays they needed to. They made the plays they needed to force the fumble. That's 2 to won the turnover battle by 2, and that's kind of the team they're going to be. They're up to number 11 in the country, and if we're looking at the Big 12, we might as well pop over to Arizona State. Arizona State has a massive win this weekend over Texas Tech. Texas Tech was a team that was dominating everyone. They dominated Utah early in the season. That was kind of the only big test. Beat Houston big on the road. Beat Kansas big at home. Going into Arizona State, Leavitt is back, and 8.5-point favorites at home. They outright win the game. Just another wide open conference because Arizona State's at 5-2, obviously with that loss to Mississippi State, but they're sitting at 3-1 in the Big 12. And Texas Tech, who was absolutely cruising, number 17 in the country, drops down to number 14 and has one conference loss. So let me pull up the Big 12 conference standings. There's a lot of, I feel like this year in college football is so wide open. So many conferences have so many teams in play. The SEC is one of those things I'm talking about to talk about them, those games this weekend. But there's so many teams in each thing that are sitting at one loss, 1 or 2 losses on the season that are very well in it. BYU, Cincinnati, both undefeated, 4-0 in conference play. Cincinnati had that loss early season to Nebraska. Arizona State, Texas Tech, Houston, all with 1 loss. You got Iowa State Cyclone at 2-2. Speaking of the Cyclones, they host BYU this week. They are favored against BYU in a huge conference game. This is Iowa State's last kind of chance at, I don't know if they do have a shot, but if they want to, they have to win this game. And they can shuffle some things up at the top of the conference if they beat BYU. Looking at Cincinnati's schedule, they got Baylor, Utah, Arizona, BYU, TCU. That's a gauntlet to finish the season. On the Arizona State side, Iowa State, West Virginia, Houston, Colorado, Arizona. I'd say that's favorable. They're in if they win out, they got a real shot to make this playoff game. BYU, Texas Tech, Iowa State, TCU, Cincinnati, UCF. That is no slouch. I can see them losing a few of those games. So yeah, another wide open conference play right there. Notre Dame, I got to give them a shout out. They were 10-point favorites at home against USC, but they came out and answered the bell. This was a back and forth game going into the fourth quarter, and they end up pulling away at the end of the game, end up winning by 10. USC has a disaster of a trick play. Maeva turns the ball over twice. Not efficient, 22 of 42, 330 yards, but 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They got pushed around the ground. King Miller was 18 for 70. This was not the rushing performance that we had saw the week before against Michigan, and they got dominated on the ground. Jeremiah Love, 24 for 228, 1 touchdown. Jadarian Price, 13 for 87. That's 44 carries for 306 yards from the 2 in the whole Notre Dame Fighting Irish running game. This Notre Dame team is probably going to make the playoff. I don't see them losing any of these games as the rest of the season. Boston College, Navy, Pitt, Syracuse, Stanford. They're going to make the playoff, and they can make some real noise. This is a professional football team that I think can beat a lot of teams out there. We'll go to the SEC. Ole Miss. This was their chance, and they blew it. They absolutely blew it. This was Lane's chance, man. They were in a prime position. They got started off so hot. Shameless was playing fantastic, and you're ahead pretty practically the whole game. You start the third quarter with a huge touchdown. You go up 8, and it's just kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and your defense can't get a stop, and you eventually get a stop. Once that fourth quarter hits, it's 35-33 Ole Miss going into the fourth quarter. Or no, it's 35-26. You're up 2 scores, and Georgia scores, makes it a 2-point game. 3-and-out punt. Georgia scores, you're down 5. 3-and-out punt. Georgia scores a field goal, you're up 8, down 8, and turnover and downs on 5 plays. When the light shined the brightest, they didn't show up. And I wasn't too high on this Rebels team. They're the number 8 team in the country now. And that leads into their game this week, which I'm calling this a playoff eliminator. The Ole Miss Rebels are traveling to Oklahoma. 2 1-loss teams. 8-13. Oklahoma disappointed 2 weeks ago in the Red River Shootout. Ole Miss disappointed last week at Georgia. I mean, a tough place to play for sure, but if you lose that game, okay, they were not favored. It was in their hands. And they played such a good game up until that fourth quarter, which is the more frustrating part. And, I mean, if Ole Miss, if you win this game, you got South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. Nothing's a gimme in the SEC, but I think if you win this game, you should be on a fast track for the SEC championship. And on the Oklahoma side, things are much tougher. You got Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, LSU. Every single game is a ranked game. I don't think they're going to make the playoff, but if they want to keep those hopes alive, you have to win this game. And if we want to go to these SEC conference standings now, which I do want to check out, A&M, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Vandy. All teams with 1 or 0 losses in the conference. A&M and Bama both have 0 conference losses. A&M's number 3 team in the country. Bama's number 4 team in the country. Georgia's 5. Ole Miss is 8. It's anyone's conference. It quite frankly is anyone's conference. We'll go to Alabama. Alabama might win it all. I buried them at the start of the season. I'm going to have to raise my hand and say that one's on me there. From what we saw in week 1 is the completely different team that we're seeing now. Ty Simpson I think he should win the Heisman. At this point, he's my Heisman pick. He's a stud, man. And they're playing great football. They're beating good teams week in and week out. Dominant win versus Tennessee. Win a close game against Missouri. Beat Vandy by multiple scores at home. Beat Georgia on the road. These are all impressive wins. And now you got South Carolina, LSU at home, Oklahoma at home, Eastern at Illinois, and Auburn in the Iron Bowl. The favorable schedule in the season. They just got through their gauntlet. This is a playoff team. This is a national title contender. Don't want to. We kind of have to go up with the Huskies. Just really disappointing. I don't want to spend too much time on it right now. They got a chance to bounce back this week at hosting Illinois, a ranked team at home. They're like 4.5 point favorites. Win this game, please, because that was so disappointing last week. And from like the DeMond standpoint, he played probably the worst game he's played all year. He turned the ball over twice in big spots. Like, you're in this game, low scoring, your defense is battling. It's never really pretty with the Husky defense, but they find ways to get stops. And you're down 7-0. Michigan misses a field goal. You go down before half with a beautiful drive, and you score. You're at 7-7 going into the half. And you get the ball, you have a chance, and 3 and out, 2 yards, punt. You force a turnover on downs, a big stop in your own territory on Michigan. And then you have a 10-play, 27-yard drive that ends in a punt. And then you force another punt. And you get the ball back, and it's like, all right, we have a chance to go take this lead again in the third quarter. And DeMond throws a pick on the first play of the drive. Practically a pick six. You give them the ball on the 15-yard line. They run it in. And the next drive, they're getting aggressive. 2 big throws. You're only on 7. And the linebacker makes a great play. 2 picks to 2 linebackers. This can't happen. 21-7. Turnover on downs. Field goal. Another interception at the end of the game. Just frustrating. They had a chance for a big convincing win. They would have been ranked. DeMond plays the worst game of the year. Didn't really commit to running the football, I thought, which is frustrating. Denzel gets 4 targets. He has a big one early in the first half, and then they don't go to him for like a majority middle half of the game. Just a really frustrating game to watch because there were so many chances they had. Like, Michigan was moving the football, and they were just somehow still alive in this game. And Michigan ran the ball for 40 times for 187 yards. The passing yards were pretty similar, but they dominated us on like the run game fast of the game. I was impressed with Underwood. They didn't ask him to do too much, but he made the right throws when he needed to, and he didn't put the ball in harm's way, and that's what all they're asking for him to do in that game plan. But just disappointing. You got another shot to bounce back. Don't make this like a total disappointment of the season. Beat Illinois, beat Wisconsin, beat Purdue, beat UCLA, and see what you can do against Oregon at home. Like, if you told me that they would be sitting with 2 or 3 losses, I'd probably say that's pretty realistic. But don't compound these bad losses by losing to a team like Illinois. Have a ranked win. Might get yourself in the rankings if you win this, and see what happens. Just have a fun rest of the season. Make the most of it. Do not soil this. That's all I'm asking. On to this week, talk about Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Another game I'm calling a playoff eliminator. Missouri at Vandy. I think Vandy is in the better spot than Missouri, quite frankly, just because I think Vandy's more of a legit team. I think that Pavia is fun. I like watching Diego Pavia. That was a great win last week against LSU. Pops the Heisman pose. LSU's dead. Nuss is dead, dude. I don't know what's going on with those guys. Brian Kelly, just not a fit there. Just doesn't seem like he really resonates with the identity of LSU football. And on the Vandy side, man, hosting Missouri, going to Texas, Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. That you can win that Texas game. Like as crazy as that is to say, like you can mess with Arch a little bit and force a few turnovers. That's a winnable game. Win this Missouri game, and you're definitely alive. And you can make it fun next week and see what's going on. On the Missouri side, I don't know what to do with these guys after that loss to Alabama. They barely beat Auburn in overtime. They're at Vandy hosting A&M, Mississippi State at Oklahoma. I mean, A&M, you're hosting them. I don't know how much I necessarily believe in A&M, but I mean, this is a big game. It's a big game, playoff eliminator. And I talked about Iowa State, BYU. So I think that's going to wrap it up. First show back from the one-show hiatus. Appreciate you for tuning in if you made it this far. A lot to cover, kind of all over the place, trying to catch up from Monday's show and keep people informed for this weekend. Happy to get this done, though. Happy to get this show done. Really like doing it again. And I'll see you guys on Monday. Thank you so much for listening.